You're a good kid.
Thanks.
Top 10 pieces of advice for men, and I'll pick up at number 4. Your friends. This might seem really obvious, but once you leave your home and you enter campus, the real world, you're gonna have uninhibited access to girls, friends. Hormones are at an all-time high. There's alcohol, there's parties. Things can happen quickly and things can be really fun until they aren't. You don't know everyone. Your campus, this world, is filled with people from every walk of life. Learn to walk away from a friendship even if other people are like, hey, I really love this kid. If you have a bad vibe, don't ignore it. Other people can be friends with this person, and that could be their friend, but they might not be your friend, okay? Understand that. People can be bad news and put you in precarious situations, but no one's going to stop you from making the wrong friends. So fraternities, there are 1,000 bad things that you could say about them, but men really do have hard times making meaningful, emotionally deep friendships without some sort of structure in place. So I see the appeal, I really do. But just know, those kids might not be doing the right thing all the time. And they're going to represent you. Decide if that's the environment that's going to make you a man you want to become. Start doing things for the right reasons, and it will be much easier for you to do the right thing in real life. It's not just like all of a sudden you're gonna be in this position and you're gonna know the right thing. It's the little things and the work up to it. It's like make a small good decision, you'll make a good big decision. You cross that gray line once, you'll cross it again when it's darker. But one thing I will say about fraternities, this is not a place where you're going to learn enlightened values. So if you decide to join, please draw lines in the sand that you know you are not willing to cross, and ways you will not allow yourself to be influenced. These spaces are particularly harmful for women and the way you will think and speak of women, which brings me to number 5. You are way more impressionable than you like to admit. The way people speak about things repeatedly in front of you, you will internalize and begin to embody that ethos, and eventually you will feel very strongly about certain things. But please remember, you do not obtain the abject truth. Nobody does. So truly do the reflective work to consider whether your truth isn't the only truth. Other people don't possess an inferior version of the truth compared to you. You are not the standard. So don't walk around like you are, because it makes you seem dumb. If you do feel like you're superior and that your understanding of any and everything is more seamless than other people's, understand that that perspective, that right there, is hindering you and your potential to be a better person. And disclaimer, society, the way society tells you to feel about women is bullshit. But you will still feel that way about women whether you like to admit it or not, in small or big ways. Things will be said about women. They will be heavy-handed and they almost always have an agenda. I'm gonna read something to you, and you might think it's extreme, but it isn't. Okay, sorry, I ran out of time and I'm going to run out of time today, but what I'm gonna read to you, once again, I want you to know that this guy is actually safer, and it's gonna be alarming, but I would rather someone say, I feel these things to a varying degree than say, none of this exists within me at all. Because this person is, closer to exercising that demon than the guy that's like, he's not even on the denial phase. Like he's not even entered the cycle where this is maybe going to potentially end. He'll just behave in ways that are microaggressive towards women without the awareness of knowing why. Right? And he'll feel vindicated and he'll create an alternate reasoning for why he does that to women. So without further ado, this is the post. This is the post on Reddit. I feel a strange sense of hatred against women and I can't find out why. I'm a 19-year-old student. Ever since puberty, I've been slowly developing a dislike of women. I've never treated anyone poorly because of this. I've never acted out on it. In fact, I treat women with respect just like any other human being, but I have a weird, unspoken, pushed-down misogyny for some reason. This misogyny often arises uncomfortable feelings in me, such as anger or frustration. For example, this usually happens when a girl says they're strong or that they're smart. Also, when she talks about anything sexual or mentions her boyfriend, I get really frustrated. Sometimes it's subtle, such as when a woman voices out any political or scientific opinion. I secretly dismiss everything she says because she's a woman after all. For those reasons, I've avoided women my entire life. I've had friends that were girls before, but I abandoned them because I got really angry at them all the time. I didn't show it to them though. For her to mention anything sexual is enough for me to get frustrated. Or even if she just names her boyfriend, I immediately start thinking about how she's having sex with him and how she's, excuse me for this, but a slut for that. This also happens when I see any girl give attention to another guy. And don't get me wrong here, please. I'm not an incel. I've had 4 relationships in the past. They all failed because I just couldn't keep up with them. There was no real connection. I also secretly felt this way about the women in my life. I hated them for giving me attention. In my eyes, they were just like every single girl that I despised. I understand how hateful I sound, but I've never voiced any of this before. I'm making this post because I'm confused. When I try and think about my deep misogyny, I don't get it. I don't know why I have these feelings. I need advice. Thank you. Now, you might think that's so messed up. This kid is mentally ill. This kid needs therapy. This exists on a spectrum in every man. Yeah, this exists on a spectrum in almost every single man that you know. And if you do not do the work to self-reflect, it is very likely that you've repressed it all the way down and it exists in you too. And there will be excuses for this. Like, the guy that's like, oh, I'm not like this. I'm not like the misogynistic men. I'm actually better in XYZ way. But they believe it. They truly do deep down believe it. There are variables and there are conditions, right? It's okay to feel this way about a sex worker, right? It's okay to feel this way about someone that is a slut, And it's not, right? Like, you're only as protected as the most marginalized person in your society. And, sex workers, like, they're the first domino, And if you think that way about women, it's just pretty uniformly not good. And you'll understand as you older why. But when you're younger, you don't. Like, you almost think it's okay to discriminate, based on these, like, harsh divisions, right? You're not creating harsh divisions. You're creating a gradient. Okay, it's okay to not respect women intrinsically based on certain conditions. And then that just tells you that, women are less human than men are. And that's kind of where it begins. Your brain doesn't understand the difference, right? Like, between these, like, little specific differences and nuance. It understands the underlying message. And the underlying message is that women are less human. They're not inherently as interesting. They're not inherently as smart. When they're doing something sexual, it's wrong. It's wrong when they do it. I think it's like a therapy thing. This is a sociocultural issue. This exists in every man, if they have a great childhood. I can't speak for this specific person, and this specific person probably does need therapy for different reasons, but this is a sociocultural thing, right? Like, at one end of this spectrum, therapy isn't going to help them. They'll go to therapy, they'll become more manipulative, they'll try to get an A+ from the therapist, they'll get it, and then they'll use that as, like, a way to abuse women and be like, well, I went to therapy, I did the work, like, I'm right for a multitude of reasons, and you're wrong. Number one, namely, because you're a woman, but also because I have a specialist that's told me I'm not insane. Therapy isn't the solution for that kind of thinking. It is internal reflection and challenging your own beliefs and getting to the fundamental root cause of why you believe these things. And it is patriarchal values. It's 50% of the population. Being misogynistic is lazy. In the same way, being racist is lazy. In the same way, being classist is lazy, right? For you to say, like, all women are bad or even all men are bad, that's cynical. And being cynical is lazy. It's lazy. Now, this post comes in a bunch of different flavors, and everybody's, like, special flavor of misogyny and their sexist thinking is going to be a little different. His triggers, it's very clear that whenever he feels like his position might be challenged, right? So he's insecure, right? So there are times when women will say things that'll either make him feel insecure or inferior, and that's when this, like, hatred buds out, right? So when she has a boyfriend, that somehow signals to him that, like, he's not her boyfriend, or that he's not sleeping with her, or that he may or may not have access to her in that way inherently. Or, she thinks she's smart, which might mean that she thinks she's smarter than me, and that really annoys me because she's a woman after all. So, like, those are his triggers. And with this particular post, people engaged with it pretty positively. Like, it's really good that you're aware of this and that you're, like, working through this. And so they challenged him, and you kind of got to see, the way that his mind works. So, in one of them, they ask him questions. It's clearly, like, this is a post of someone that's scared. Like, they know that there's something in their way of thinking that, like, scares them, and they don't know where it goes. Like, this guy is safer than so many other guys. Like, I need to kind of reinforce that. This guy, to me, I think he's really at risk of going down any bad pipeline, right? Because he's already aware of it, and he already doesn't like it, and he's already seeking the right channels so that he can course correct, right? This guy is safe. Someone asked him a question, he goes, yeah, this has scared me quite a lot of times. I find myself unable to form a truly platonic relationship with a woman. In the back of my mind, I can't help but think that I want to be with her romantically and that it'll happen one day. This is why I abandoned my friends and ran away from them, because it was too much for me to handle. I know that this doesn't excuse my shitty behavior, but I don't want to end up saying hurtful things to them. So that this is the guy, like, running away from his problem, but had he stayed, he'd wind up negging them. He'd wind up putting them down in order to make them feel better. And certainly there are bad women, right, that have done wrong and will continue to do wrong, and they will harm men in ways that like make them feel badly about all women, right? But that's very misanthropic, right? Like you can't attribute, like I said, cynicism is lazy. It's 50% of the population. Not everyone's like that. Just like being a misandrist is lazy, right? Like, you know, women kind of like toy with that, like, oh, like I hate all men. That's lazy. Like it's more like a trite saying than it is the reality. Very many men that subconsciously feel this way towards women will have a very difficult time with women in authority positions. Women are not only humans when they are sitting in a position that's beneath you, right? Like you need to understand that when they're your equal, they are your equals. All humans are your equals. And, you know, for someone that has been given privilege for so long, oppressed others, you know, equality seems like oppression. So it exists. In the most benevolent man, it exists to a small degree. So really try to challenge yourself and reflect on the way that you think about women, and if it's true, where it comes from. Try to unlearn that. With that, also really try to stop yourself from saying mean and hateful things about women. Make that a muscle that you continuously flex. It will get stronger. It will eventually become something natural. For example, if a girl is beat and people are talking about her in a room, you do not need to remark on that. You do not need to participate in that conversation. You talking about it, kind of joining in. If girls beat, girls beat. I'm sorry. You talking about it is not going to make her more beat, and it's not going to make her any more attractive. You do not need to engage in those conversations. You kind of don't need to make a commentary on her looks. Women's looks, you don't really need to make a commentary on them. You don't feel the same need to make commentary on men's looks as you do on women. And there's a reason for that. Ranking women, don't participate in that. Try to challenge your peers in the way that they speak about women. It might seem harmless to just partake in certain conversations. You don't need to be doing it. It's not doing good things for you as a human. It's not like making you more well-rounded. You know, you're losing brain cells as you do that. There's no need for it. Try to acknowledge the power differentials that organically get created with women, how men will slyly create power dynamics in conversations with women, how in discussions about women, certain men will try to place themselves above them in very sneaky ways for you to just acknowledge that, hey, like, yes, us men, we are better than women. Don't you agree? Yes, of course. And it'll be said very, very subtly. Yeah, but she's a slut, so. And someone will be like, yeah, true. Ask yourself what stereotypes you think are secretly true. Journal about that. Ask yourself where that comes from. Do you subtly think that men are actually like superior? If you do, what do you think a woman would have to do for you to take her seriously? In a relationship, think about men have demanded, well, you know, had you only approached me better, you know, had you only done this, had you only done that. I need you to imagine, you know, if she had asked you calmly the first time, would you have done it? And if she already has, why didn't you do it, right? You know, or did you only get mad once she kind of got frustrated after asking for it for 3 times, 4 times? You know, are things only important when you deem them important? Do you think you possess the abject truth compared to women? Do you find women's version of the truth less objective? Understanding that is going to shape the way that you interact with women. And the reason you think certain things is normally because of society, you know, the things that are ingrained and embedded into society. And it's likely rooted in the control and power dynamics that men are taught to worship. You know, please operate with honesty, you know, and integrity. Like being honest with yourself and having that reflect outwardly in the way you speak is that's how you maintain integrity. If you lose integrity, if you lose that strength, it's hard to get it back, right? You lose the line with yourself, it's hard to get it back. And you start doing more and more morally gray things. Do not lie about girls that you have got with. I would prefer you were a virgin forever than say that you've gotten with a girl that, you know, you haven't. And also, where do you think that's going? Do you think people believe you? Most times they don't. You think that's not going to get back to the girl? A lot of times it does. And then you have one of 2 situations, right? You want people to believe you, so they either think she's lying, but then a person that you're slept with is not claiming you, right? Like they're so embarrassed of you to the point where they're denying having slept with you. Of course you haven't, because you're making it up, right? So this is, you know, still a storyline that you are concocting. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing that like someone that you have been with does not claim you. The second is that you're a liar. You're undesirable and a loser in both those situations. Or maybe the third is that you did, but you did it during a time where she was not like either conscious, in her right realm of faculties. Like consent should be booming. It should be obvious. One thing I could tell you about virgins is they have standards. I would rather you be a virgin that was picky with standards. Remember, it's not a race. Frustration and rejection are natural. Do not get consumed with pressure and other stupidities that society put on you. It is all so dumb. It is all so dumb. Do not get caught up. No one, and I mean no one, bats 100. People that perhaps engage with others more easily than you will not be happier or better than you for that. This is gonna sound cringe, but your relationship with your sexuality is your own. Do not do anything to impress other people. Don't do anything to impress your friends. Don't try to measure up. Don't try to show off in front of women or act out. Those competitions are not worth it. Remember, the one thing you could say about virgins is they have standards. The guy at every college that's trying to get with as many people as they can and hit 100 and keeps a list, he doesn't. That guy for sure does not have standards. Mic on, he does not respect women. He does not respect himself. That's for sure. Debatably, this person wants male validation in a way that's pretty much homoerotic. So there's that. Don't engage with shit like that. That's not cool. Don't worship people like that. They're not cool, and you're not cool for worshiping them. You will see a lot of really weird shit said in group chats. People will cross lines. Decide how you feel about that, really. Decide if these are the people that you want impacting you. Admit how it feels to say, hey, I saw that and I did nothing. Admit that. Admit that to yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, by not saying anything, I co-sign that. Guys look to other guys. They like sneaky send other signals to be like, hey, are you this kind of guy? I'm gonna slowly send something, and then I'm gonna send something again, and I'm gonna send something again. And every single time you're co-signing it and telling him what kind of guy you are. Be honest with yourself and be honest with girls. Telling half-truths or telling girls what they want to hear or just failing to be transparent in order to get with a girl, that does not make you a player, that makes you a predator. That is very predatory. That is predatory behavior. That behavior might be normalized. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it right. Don't be the guy that spits on girls. Everybody hates that guy. Everybody hates that. That guy is not a good guy. You should not aim to be that guy. With that said, I have to go, and I will pick back up at number 6.